You know, I actually am going to tell you something. You hear me railing against Jesse Jackson. Actually, I don't rail against Jesse Jackson. I talk about Reverend Jackson. And I don't rail against him. In fact, I admire Reverend Jackson's ability to con people into giving him money. His ability to run scams is on a level that I've never seen before. And as a person who can appreciate a good scam, I appreciate the Reverend Jackson because what he's done for us is he's allowed us to see what a successful scam artist can do. All right, I'm sorry. Let me talk about Jesse Jackson for a minute. And then I'll move on over to how it relates to LeBron James, because I can see that I've already gotten myself inside of a pickle. I've gotten myself into a predicament that I'm not going to just be able to walk away from. I probably could walk away from it, but the way my silly brain works, it's not going to be comfortable anymore for me unless I finish this. So the Reverend Jackson is a con artist on the likes of which black people have never seen before. As a community, we have been trying to find that one, not amongst people in leadership. I'm talking just grassroots, just when you're dealing with the neighborhoods. We've been trying to find that one who would be successful at running scams, but not against other black people, but be successful in running scams against white people and corporate America. Because we practice on one another, black people. The practice goes in-house. But when you become a successful scam artist in the black community is when you step outside of your own and you're able to run great scams on Caucasian people, particularly those millionaires or billionaires. When you can get them to give you money in order to shut up, or when you can get them to give you money in order to, because they think something about you, that's a level of success that's not seen when you're walking up and down the street with a radio that doesn't work. That's a level of success that's not seen when you are walking with a box that is empty, but you are saying that there's a flat screen television in it, and when the person goes to open it, there's a brick. That's a different type of a scam. One for the masses of black people is very admirable. And if you've heard me talk about the Reverend Jackson before, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Reverend Jackson has never been looked at in the black community. I really don't even think by people in his own church. But I can't say that for sure because I've never been a member of his church. But the Reverend has never been looked at by the masses of black people as a moral figure. The value that Jesse Jackson has to us as black people is his ability to annoy white people. And I know that I've said that enough times, but I don't think that that's something that I can say enough because I don't think that you get it. You know, I think that you think that I'm joking. And I'm telling you that I am not. And that's what made Al Sharpton a major rival against Jesse Jackson, because he was somehow able to annoy white people even more than Jesse Jackson, which before Al Sharpton came along, nobody ever thought that that was a realistic proposition. We never thought that that's something that could ever happen. Jesse Jackson had mastered that. And I don't know whether or not Al Sharpton had gone and studied Reverend Jackson's techniques and decided to use, which techniques of annoyance of white people that he'd use and which techniques he'd leave by the side. I don't know. But I do know that he came along and there's just something about, I think it's his overall look. I think it's Al Sharpton's look it's more shady than the Reverend's. It's more seedy. Like the Reverend Jackson has got to start speaking. And once he starts speaking, you're able to see some of the shadiness coming out. Al Sharpton, you get the shady persona before he opens his mouth. So by the time that he opens his mouth to speak, you're already thoroughly engrossed in the shadiness of the persona that is Al Sharpton. And so that gives him an advantage. Jesse's got to speak in order for you to recognize what you're dealing with. And Al Sharpton, you recognize what you're dealing with as he approaches you on the street. As he's walking up the street, when he's a quarter of a block away, you see the hair, You see the clothing, you see the facial features, you see the size of the mass of the being that's coming towards you, and your brain goes into another mode, and you're able to say, oh, I see what this is. And your mind starts to prepare before he ever gets there. Now, with Jesse Jackson, on the other hand, he's a strikingly tall man. For those of you who've never seen Jesse Jackson in person before, you may not know he's very, very tall, while Al Sharpton is not. So, but there are a lot of tall people that are out there. Like, you don't necessarily get the shady concept of a person based off of their height. So while he may stand apart from other people, it doesn't stand apart in a shady way. But when he starts speaking, you instantly know. Now, with all things being equal, when Al Sharpton starts to speak, you get the same level of shadiness that you would get with Jesse Jackson. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, and I'd never done that before, you might actually get more of a level of shadiness with Mr. Sharpton, even when he starts speaking. So maybe that's where this rivalry is going to come in at. Maybe Al Sharpton has just knocked Jesse Jackson out of the box. I would imagine, though, that the people who are Jesse Jackson fans from way back are going to be holding on to the Jesse Jackson that they know and love. So there we go about Jesse Jackson, and that sums up the discussion of Jesse and Al. Maybe we should run some sort of a poll on the All Digital Radio Network or over on SirDarryl.com that says, who's more shady, Reverend Jackson or Al Sharpton? I would think Al Sharpton would win that. And of course, if you can win the competition of being more not just more shady, but more of a thorn in the side of white people, once you get that mantle, you've virtually become the new black leader. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate of a reality, but you all know I'm telling the truth.